Hello, it's Jack Tutor here from Attention Magazine. Welcome to Crucial Listening, the podcast where I speak with musicians and sound artists about 3 albums that are important to them. My guests, 2 this time, are Julian Sartorius and Feldermelder, who released a collaborative record on the label On Us called Bon Route, originally based on a commission from the venue in Switzerland called Bad Bonn. And the basis of this album are a set of recordings made at 11 different locations around the village of Dudingen by Julian Sartorius, drumming on things, field recordings. All this material was sent over to Feldermelder to then be processed into the compositions you find on this album. And what's great is that on one side, you've got these acts of wizardry by Feldermelder using resonators and various other techniques to really haul up the harmonics of the various materials captured, and they get turned into like arpeggiating melodies, chords, all these things that seem so far removed from the original material. And then you get the raw essence intact of these various spaces, the clangs of metal, the real resonance of material being hit, that kind of earthly grounding that runs throughout this record. It's so nicely done. There's a lovely balance between those 2 forces. So please do check out the record, and also be sure to check out the solo music by both of these musicians. So Feldermelder just recently released Euphoric Attempts, again via On Us, and Julian Sartorius released Mux earlier this year on Marionette. Both excellent. So yeah, I'll put links in the show notes to those. And if you want to support Crucial Listening, you can do over at Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/crucial listening, where you can make a one-off donation or a monthly one of any amount of your choosing. And that helps to support the podcast, the hosting fees, but also the energy exerted in making it each fortnight. Thank you for listening as always. Really hope you enjoy this episode. 4 lovely records here, so because there were 2 guests, I do 2 apiece instead of 3. But yeah, lovely selection. So this is Julian Sartorius and Feldermelder on Crucial Listening. Hello, Julian. Hello, Feldermelder. Welcome to Crucial Listening.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm going to talk to you about your important records. You've both picked 2 records apiece, but before we get stuck into those, I want to ask you about your new collaborative record, Bon Route, which was released on Feldermelder's label, the one you're a co-founder of, AUS, over the summer. So I understand, Julian, this sounds like it started with you in terms of the process. You recorded sounds at 11 different locations, presuming around, is it Dudingen? Am I pronouncing that correctly? It's another one I should have checked.
Yeah, it's the city or the village. It's called Dudingen. And the project was initiated by Dux. He's the promoter of a venue called Bad Bonn in Dudingen. And he commissioned a sound walk from Feldermelder and myself. And then we walked with him through Dudingen. And we've chosen the places together with him. And also, Feldermelder and me discussed which places would be best. And as soon as we fixed the places, I went there on my own and recorded sounds. I think I spent a few days in Dudingen and just recording sounds at the different places. And then I've sent quite a big sound library to Feldermelder. And with this library, he had a carte blanche. He could do whatever he wants with it. So it was Feldermelder that actually created then the tracks out of my sounds and finished the record.
Nice. So I know that you have been out and about with your drumsticks before, interacting with places. I'm so interested to know what is it that defined what you deemed to make places like best for putting these pieces down, and what did that look like when you went out solo? How did you interact with these spaces?
Yeah, what is most important to me when I go out with the drumsticks and look for sounds, or what is the most fascinating, is that I like every object that exists is giving a sound when you hit it. Like there is no object that doesn't react on hitting it. And I do it since many years, and still I have so many surprises, and that's really fascinating. And also, when you have, for example, when you have a wall at a building and it all looks the same, like every centimeter or every meter looks the same. When you hit it, it sounds different most of the time. So it's like looking inside the object or inside the material, and I get to know a place really profoundly when I hit the objects and when I know the sounds that it's doing, and that's really fascinating for me.
And so, as you say, you give Feldermelder carte blanche to do as you please with these recordings. That's quite a hefty undertaking, right? You get this big bulk of recordings from all these different places. Feldermelder, how did you go about starting to work on these pieces and putting them together from the recordings you'd received from Julian?
Well, I had a bit. It's hard to say, because for every spot, sometimes I had a little slightly different approach. But the first thing was really to listen through what he recorded, and there were some little patterns sometimes, like from a single sound, little patterns. And then I was really clicking through this sound bank and checked what is the catchy thing that I could then build around it. From then on, it was really like trying to use the minimal amount of other sound sources. I was really focused on the sounds around the sounds he recorded, if this makes sense. It's the atmosphere around it, and then let me guide from the atmosphere what kind of track it should become. And then I used some of his patterns, I did a lot of cutting, and I mean, it's but it was super inspirational material to start with. And already when we walked around there, and I'm from not far away, so I know this village inside out. So I had the idea what sound, how the places should sound.
One of the most astonishing things about this record is, this is part of the text, so correct me if it's wrong, but there's only one recording on this, or one sound on the whole record, which isn't derived from Julian's recordings. Which, when you know that, and initially I didn't, I just listened to the record and kind of relished it for what it was. But in that knowledge, listening back, and then hearing something like "I'm Back" with those like arpeggiating loops, it's absolute magic to me to think that that was derived somehow from just these on the spot, on-site recordings you received from Julian.
Yeah, this was really a quest, I have to say. I don't even know why on one track I have had this bass, really, because maybe I was just too tired of inventing. But it was really, as soon as you go really small in the sounds, like milliseconds, you can form what crazy stuff around with it. And I used a lot of resonators, but that were also like in Max, that were also built with his sounds, always from the piece I was working on. I made like a new kind of resonator that then I could manipulate with his sounds again into making melodies or things. It was interesting.
That's great. I mean, it's such a joy to listen to. I mean, I understand as well you kind of invite people to listen to this on site as well. I'm curious as to how, is that kind of like a structured offering? Are you, is there a way in which people can take these pieces out into the world or out into this village rather and enjoy them optimally? Or is it kind of just like an open invite to say, look, go visit these spaces and listen to these pieces while you're there?
In the beginning, we had it was like an app where the people could walk there, and as soon they entered a zone, the music started.
Oh, cool.
So this was like during the sound walk in the beginning, but at the moment it's not online. But I'm thinking with Daniel from Dux from the Bad Bonn, with the village together, how to make it permanent.
That's great. In the meantime, people should definitely check out the album. It's really cool. There's so much to draw on. I think my favorite thing about it is you get the various place names referenced in the titles. You can hear the sort of material essence of these places still retained within these otherwise very musical and beat-driven compositions. It's lovely. So, like I say, I'll include links in the show notes. People should check them out. And we should talk about your important records that you both picked. So I'm intrigued to begin with to understand how you thought about the word important when picking your two records apiece. So Julian, was there a way that you understood the word important in order to pluck these two records out?
Yes, for me, I was looking for records that really had a big influence or impact on me, and that influenced my work or inspired it. Like the J Dilla record was really important to me in that sense, also of the format, not only the music in itself, but only the format, that it's a beat record with many different tracks. I was so much into that format of that record. And the other one that I picked was the birds from the rainforest in Venezuela is just also really inspiring to me, because it leads me to the question, what is music, and where it's not human made, but it's really musical, this recording, like the sounds of the birds. And that's also it's a question that I always have, like what is music and what so, and this record is really important to me in that sense still.
Awesome. And Feldermelder as well, same question to you. How did you consider the word important when picking your two records?
For me, I have maybe to say, like, one I chose is more the record, and the other is like also a show I saw of them, and that influenced me somehow, or maybe influence is the wrong word, but left a really strong impression on me, on just to think about what is music in general. And I wanted to take records that are with me since a long time, and because there is always new things that are inspiring, but both these records I listened to since I'm a kid.
Nice.
So I wanted to choose something that is really part of my life.
So Julian, let's go with one of your records first. Which one do you want to tuck into?
We can speak about Donuts first.
Yeah, sure. Nice. So give me a little introduction as to why J Dilla's Donuts is an important record to you.
Yeah, it's an important record to me in two senses. Like, one is the music, of course, like some beats I really love on that record. Two of my favorite beats is the track Lightworks, and the other one is The Factory. But also the other ones, but these two tracks really had a huge impact on me regarding the beats. And what I like about that record is it's like a record only with beats, and it was the first record I heard in that's made in that sense, and then I listened to other ones like from Madlib and John Wayne, which I really like as well. There is a record of John Wayne that also has, I think, more than 30 or 40 short tracks, and I just really like that format a lot. And the Donuts is, for me, it's like a collage, and how the tracks stop and just are connected to each other without being connected. It's really like, I still discover so much new stuff on that record every time I listen to it, and it's every track feels too short to me. That's also what I like, because I just, when the record is over, I just want to listen to it again. And also how it's built around these short loops, it had just a huge inspiration for me, and I really love that record a lot. And it affected a lot my other works, like the Beat Diary, and just the format was also important.
I mean, I'm intrigued to dig down into why that idea of it being composed of lots of just beats, lots of small tracks, and the parallel you draw between that and something like your own Beat Diary. Like, why is that structure of record with loads of short tracks? I should say as well, it's something that really excites me as well. A lot of the compilations I've been involved in have centered on a similar kind of structure. But what is it for you that is the appeal to records that are structured like that?
I think it's the surprise that I get from it when I listen to it. You don't know when the track, where it's going, when it's stopping, and it's so colorful. It feels really playful. I think for me it's like being in a room with plenty of different objects that you never can see. That you always can discover new. I don't know. It's just really, I think it's the playfulness and it's so colorful that really I just want to listen to it again and again and again. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember how you first discovered it?
I actually don't know. I think somebody told me about it, and then I found that, I don't know, then I started listening to it, and then to some other records of his and Madlib, but I don't remember how I found that record, really.
Yeah, fair. And you mentioned that there's always new stuff to discover on this record, which I totally hear. What's interesting is this is the second time this has come up on the podcast. So
wow.
Yeah. Corey Allen picked it as well, and mentioned that he listened to it hundreds of times and was still extracting new stuff from it. So
it's the same
I'm intrigued.
sensation.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued as to how your relationship with this record has changed since it's been in your life. Like, do you think about it differently now to when you first discovered it?
I think first it was really new to me, that format of the record. So this was a big surprise. And now, as I heard other records in a similar format, I think I know it. I know that better, that way of maybe creating an album, but still it's full of surprises, and maybe my ear also got more detailed during the years, and I can hear maybe more about the different loops, or I don't know, it's really hard to say. Yeah,
sure.
But it just feels I have a deeper knowledge now about the record, but still it's surprising.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised at the things that I kind of like forgotten about this record, which are kind of alarming and feel very spontaneous. So I can't remember if it's on Lightworks or Airworks, but there's one where it just kind of like stops within 2 seconds of starting and then kicks off again.
Yeah, I know which one. Yeah. And also there's another track that's really way, way too short. Like, it's just maybe 15 seconds, an amazing beat. But then it comes later again. And that's this small, like, how you say, my English is, I'm missing a word. Like this, like a tricks or dramaturgical tool. I don't know. It's really nice how with these details are really, really nice.
And you mentioned you picked up 2 beats in particular. Was it Lightworks and Factory?
And the Factory, yes.
What is it about those that makes them jut out for you, do you think? Not always easy to define in words, I appreciate. So
I think in Factory it's the phrasing, like how it bounces and how it's not it's not quantized at all. I really like the phrasing of that and how it's just bouncing. And the light works. It's rolling so nice. It's with this voice, the phrase that always come. And I think it's sampled from Raymond Scott on that track. And also I started to listen to his stuff then. Also, so some Dilla samples, they led me to other stuff. I think on that track it's a Raymond Scott. I have to double check that to not say something wrong, but I think so.
Nice. Feldermelder, you said also you had some acquaintance with Jay Dilla as well, but not this record, right? What's your experience with Jay Dilla?
Yeah, generally, like a musician I grew up around with, and like there were not that many around where I grew up that were into electronic music. So this Dim Light, maybe you know him. So he made a lot of music that was similar, and I actually Madlib and Jay Dilla, I know exactly how they sound like,
right.
In a way, like musically speaking. But I think at this time I was moving too fast and there was too much involved in this kind of music to be hung up too long on one record somehow. But I really think Jay Dilla especially, I mean, he changed music producing in general. I mean, a lot of things, Flying Lotus, all these kind of things wouldn't exist without this mental liberty that he put into the world.
Is a factory. It can hurt.
Okay, Feldermelder, let's go to your first important record. Which one do you want to talk about first?
You can choose. Let you choose.
Cool, okay. Should we go for Orteca?
Okay.
Nice. So you've gone for LP5. Why is this one important to you? Give me a little introduction to it.
Yeah, so I think when I was 15, in 94 or something like this, I think it was 94, I went to a show. It was promoted as experimental hip-hop show, and like when I was younger, even younger, I was really into these beginnings of hip-hop and in the around the 90s, beginning of the 90s. So I was super excited, like, wow, it's gonna be hip-hop. Then I went and it was Orteca. And like the first 5 minutes when they started to play, my brain was was like expecting to hear like hip-hop. But it was like, for me, at the end of the show, I thought it's the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Wow!
So it was like, I was really young. I was in the end of secondary school. I don't remember exactly, but I was so blown away from the pressure and the sound design that then I became for a while obsessed, like in hunting this kind of records. And where I grew up, it wasn't so easy to get. So, and then when LP5 came out a bit later, it was like a holy grail to me, and I was terrorizing everybody with it for years. So. But it's fascinating that sometimes I forget the record, but then a couple, I don't know, 1-2 years later, I stumble upon it, and then I listen to it, and then I still think it's so good. It's still fresh, and it's so unique. I mean, they never. It's generally it's a duo that even sometimes I forget how great they are. And it's for a while, and then I see them again play, or I hear something new, and then I think to myself, it's the only electronic music duo that I sometimes don't really know how they do the sounds.
Right.
And
wow.
And it's this that kept me. It's not like it's not like I wait for the next Ottaker or so, but it's really. Sometimes I remember something remembers me that they are actually still 10 years in the future. And I don't know, there is something about this band and also their attitude to not giving shit about fame. I mean, they don't want to be in the spotlight really, so there's a lot of around the artist and the way they see the sound that keeps me close to them somehow over the years.
You could have, I'm sure, picked any number of records here, right? LP5 is a really interesting choice because I have to say it's one that I hadn't heard before. I think I cut in around Cornfield, and then I went back to a couple of their earlier records and forward, but never LP5. So I had a really nice time getting acquainted with this and hearing it as something that maybe straddles both of those zones, you know, something more melodic in the early years, but then also very prescient in terms of where they were headed, as a lot of that kind of mid-era stuff is. What is it about LP5 which you think makes it jut out as the one that you pick as the important one?
Yeah, it's maybe it's more. It was really the brink of the band, like you said. I mean, things they do now are maybe less obvious somehow.
Yeah,
and it was like I liked in these records that there are many super minimal but extremely melodic pieces that are, and it was, I don't know, I like structure. I think some things, maybe it's this really, that I like well composed pieces, and that I find especially in this one, it's like it has still something of readable. It's still a bit readable.
Yes, totally.
But it's like the brink of that the sound design goes bonkers, you know. It's like afterwards. I mean, still, I also in the newest works I find this attitude with them. But I think there is something about. But then it's also memories, like from when I was young with my friends, and we were listening this LP5 up and down, and that all my good friends, the first time I played it to them, they were like, after like 10 minutes, stop this nervous crazy stuff. And later on, and also my mother, like she went completely crazy hearing it, and then but later, like after 2 months of abusing everybody, like they were whistling some Ottaker melodies, imagine that, while cleaning the house. So it was, I don't know, it has lots of memories, maybe more than the other records they did. So that's why I chose it.
Lovely. And is there a track on this one that sticks out for you as a favorite?
Yeah, for me it's really this. I think it's the first one, Acroyear. That is like a super slow motion moving. It's like a symphony for me, really, but it's so minimal. And you have this rhythm that, I mean, the main structure practically changes never, but in the background you have super intricate symphonic elements. and I love it. I love this still.
I love the amount of kind of deceleration and acceleration on this record. Like, there's several points where they just slow the tempo or speed up the tempo. There's that one track, you may know the name of it. I don't know if it's a pronounceable name. I don't know, a lot of them aren't, but they got one where it's just speeding up and slowing down the entire track.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I found this also when this record came out. This was really something. They had like these dying tracks, that were dying melodies. Also on another EP they did, but at some point I was really obsessed with this, like strong and then die off.
Yeah.
I don't know, movement that they did, and it was so unusual for electronic music at the time to have this. That the structure itself is used as a tool. I mean, to really... that's why I say it has these symphonic elements, because they used also the structure of the piece more like an instrument, like a symphony orchestra that can do that, because everybody is like, there is no quantization and everything. But in electronic music, there were not much of these things that stretched the sequence, or the pattern, or however you want to call it.
Yeah, for sure. And sounds like you've seen them live since that initial time in 1994. I guess also as well you were more ready for it not to be experimental hip hop, which is good. But when's the last time you saw them?
It was maybe it was 2-3 years before COVID. I think it was the last tour.
Nice.
It was awesome, really, and it was one of these moments that I thought to myself, I forgot how good they are.
Awesome. Yeah. Julian, what's your connection with Autechre? Like, do you listen to them much? Are you a fan?
Yes, it was also really important to me when I was 17. I think I discovered it. But I think it was with the record Untitled. You know which one it is?
Isn't that this one? Or is that a different one?
It's a different one.
Oh, okay.
I think it's this one.
There's an EP as well, which is like an hour-long EP, which I think is also Untitled. Is it that one?
I don't know. But I really loved that record, and it was also really, really inspiring and really important to me for the drums, because the rhythms they built, it was so, I just feel like listening to it again now. Maybe after the interview I will listen straight back to it.
Awesome.
Yes, no, it was really, really also had a huge impact on me, really. I played a concert in Poland, and there was a guy having the band name Autechre, had a tattoo on his neck of the band, and then I said, that band, I want to listen to it again. He also seems to be a huge fan. Having it tattooed visible for everyone all the time in front, on the neck.
That is amazing. That's the funny thing, I think, because I agree with you, Feldermelder, in the sense that they're not going out their way for popularity, but I went to see them on Friday actually, and they played 2 nights. They played one night but twice at the Barbican, where they did an early show and a late show in the same evening, and those seats sold out so quickly. So despite their best efforts, they are so well adored.
The music is too good.
That's their problem.
I mean, there's not many. I don't know, there's not many electronic musicians that stayed so true to their initial things, but never do really the same thing. I don't know, they also never did like horrible remixes or whatever just to stay the thing or whatever. They apparently don't care, so they just put out. I mean, I remember a couple of years back when they put out like these 3 or 4 hours of album. So I was at the time a bit sick, and I was listening to this like while being sick, like 4 hours.
Oh my word!
And I was just there like, they're crazy. You know, they have a good attitude towards it all. So.
Julian, let's go to your second important record. If you could tell me the name of it and then give me an introduction as to why it's important to you.
Yeah, the record is called Birds of Venezuela, and it's recorded by I don't know how to pronounce his name actually.
It's like Jean C. Roche?
Yeah, maybe like that. And he did field recordings. I don't know exactly when, but and then he made a collage of these recordings that he did in the rainforest in Venezuela, and the sound of these birds is just unbelievable. To me, it sounds like electronic music, but it's all acoustic. It's like they make these sounds, and I have no idea how they make these sounds, these birds, and. Yeah, for me, it leads me to the question, what is music and what is musicality, and this is just so great to listen to it, but the birds, they just do that sound with I don't know what they are thinking of when they are doing that, but it's just for me, I just can listen to it all the time again, and it's always fascinating. And also nowadays, with the whole story with the rainforest, I ask myself if these sounds, if they will disappear one day, because when the forest goes away, gets destroyed, also these birds will not survive, and maybe we lose these sounds. So also this is really something that moves me, that these sounds might disappear, these acoustic sounds. So it's also really it fits to the time we're living in, and the questions, and how Brazil is behaving, and so also regarding that, it's for me an important record, because it keeps these sounds, and it's a really important document. Maybe one day, already now, but maybe one day it will be the only possibility to listen to these birds. Maybe yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of a sad undercurrent, isn't it, of this
totally
record?
Yes.
Do you remember how you came to discover this one?
Yeah, I remember exactly with that one, because I was traveling to London, and I think I was on tour and spent all the time I spent that in airports and airplanes and trains and train stations. And then I came to he's a keyboarder from London and a pianist. He's called Dan Nichols. I came to his home, and then I wanted to have a rest, and he showed me that record, and I was so touched by it, coming straight from the airport and listening to these birds. And it felt so good. And then I bought the vinyl, and I actually love to listen to it on vinyl.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And also maybe one auto connection is because I work mostly acoustically with sounds that also sounds like electronic sounds, but it's made with acoustic tools or instruments. And also these birds, they're acoustic, but it sounds like electronic sounds.
Yes.
It's really it's unbelievable for me. So maybe this is also something why I'm so fascinated by that.
The other connection that I was thinking when I was listening is obviously this real connection between sound and place and geography, and sounds that belong to or are emblematic of being in a certain locale. I mean, do you think that's maybe part of your affinity as well?
Yeah, totally. I think so, because it's really part of that place, and it only exists there. These sounds, they cannot go elsewhere. You will not find these sounds in a city or in a desert or in the mountains. So that's also really important to me, or fascinating. Yeah,
I think that's the really interesting thing for me, is like if I heard one of these birds out of my window now, I think I'd be pretty freaked out. Like, it's really it's so alarming. This record is truly amazing. I mean, I'm someone who, just before the birth of my son, I think this was my version of like a prenatal fatherly crisis. I got really into birds and birdsong in a massive way. And so hearing this record is so astonishing because you get so attuned again to the birds in your immediate surroundings, and then hear something like this, so you realize this whole lexicon, this whole other language which is being used by other birds. I mean, did you have a connection to like birds specifically at all before hearing this record?
I think so, yeah. I'm really I love the voice of the birds also here in Switzerland, and I really love the animals. And also I was feeding the birds in front of my studio all the time until they were sitting on my hand to get the food, because I could just go out the studio, and they came because they realized that when I made a break, they came. So and for me it would be a really big dream to go once to a forest like that and really hear it with my own ears, and walking through that. It's not really walking, it's maybe more fighting through the leaves. And I really, really want to do that. So, yeah.
I think this one as well, saw it written somewhere, and I recognized the bird. I think this is sampled on Björk's Utopia album.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. I'll pop your link to the track afterwards.
Yes,
because
please. Yes.
It's very surreal to hear it in that context of something, so worldwide like Björk. Yeah.
Now I'm intrigued.
I'll send it to you as well. We've got one more record, and it's yours, Feldermelder. So, yeah, give me a little introduction to it. Tell me the name and why it's important to you.
So, the record is called Krishnanda from Pedro Sorongo Santos. He's like a Brazilian percussionist that played on many, many famous Brazilian recordings. But his own music is quite special, and it's a record that my mother is not really, she's musically interested, but it's not like she's deep researching.
Right.
But she had this record somehow.
Wow.
And so I know this record since I was born, more or less. So was made in 86, in 68, and so since I was born I had this record, and I don't know, for me this record is really with a lot of like old Italian film music, because I'm half Italian. So this record, this Brazilian record, really formed how I listen to music. Somehow it's really, I would say, the most the biggest impression in music I got is from this, and all this Ennio Morricone kind of film music. I could have also chosen something from him, but I chose this one because I had it really physically.
Right.
And I still have a passion. It's not a secret, but I mean, people who don't know me that well would never think that I have a passion for Brazilian music, but not really for Brazilian music, because I have a passion for this obscure Brazilian music from the past.
Right.
Because I still think it's the most unaffected music scene in the world. Like, they take something, when, I don't know, electronic music came up, they took it, but they never copy. I don't know how to say. They have such a strong own tradition of music that is already so broad, because from all the influences and cultures they mix there, that they never really copy something. It's like below them somehow. And they're like, no, I'm not doing that. So but they have I don't know, I have a fascination for it's funny because most of the music I like has no vocals at all.
Right.
But I really like Brazilian vocals. I really like, because they have these strange melodies, strange choirs. They always switch to a note that you don't expect. I don't know. There is a lot of fascination for me in this music in general, and this record Krishnanda I like especially because it has like all the elements. It's like orchestral music, it's film music, it's loop kind of music, it's has sound design inside, like for a record from the 60s out of Brazil. It's very has a lot of pop elements, but then it's still super experimental. I don't know. Yeah. It's so. At some point there is an organ. I mean, it must be the highest note they could find. It kills your ears. And to put that in, and from a musician that normally, he plays the percussion on the famous recording of the Girl from Ipanema, all these things. So he was so accustomed to play for the best musicians, like the poppy stuff, but his own music. And there is also a small 7-inch he put out with kind of a chicken sounds. It's so weird. It's so weird, but it's so beautiful at the same time. So I like this. Generally, all these Pedro Santos, his own recordings or his collaborations that he did under his own name, really, they're all super experimental in a way that is maybe not our tradition here, but that really captivates me since I'm a kid.
That's beautiful. I mean, I'd never heard this one. I thought this was such a delight. I mean, the kind of unexpected experimental touches were really very striking. I mean, you've got one point where you've got almost like blood-curdling screams over this really sweet melody, which is, an absolute loony decision, but it fits perfectly. Another thing I think interesting that you mentioned is this not copying anything. I mean, it sounds like, this is right on the edge, the kind of tail end of like Tropicalismo and things like that, which were quite overtly anti-nationalistic, right? So I guess there was a real desire to not copy, to not derive from any kind of tradition, but to just to disguise almost any regional origin, which is really interesting. But yeah, a lot of instruments invented as well. I mean, you mentioned as well you are also into other Brazilian records from around this era, or older Brazilian records. Were there any other that could have gone in the mix here too?
Yeah, I mean, maybe this. There's a record from Edu Lobo that normally is really known, like is a famous pop musician, Brazilian. But he did some records that are really strange. Like it's called Edu Canta Zumbi.
Right.
That I think is. Like spiritually connected to this Krishnanda record.
Right.
So in how it's made, to use all the codes but then do completely something else out of it. And I don't know, it has a lot of similarities, but in general they had, I think there was a period where they were really mentally free. And maybe it was also because they were not really attached to the worldwide music market. I thought many times about why their scene is so has so developed how it did, and all the rest of South America didn't. So
right.
So it's interesting. I'm then not I'm just thinking about, because maybe they were big enough, or they were detached so long that something so strong grew inside. It's hard to, I don't know. I would have loved to be then around there and go out in Rio and Sao Paulo to see shows. It would have been amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible you've had this record since you're a kid as well. Is this one where your relationship with it has changed over time at all? Does it, do you feel a different kind of kinship with it now to when you were small?
Yeah. I mean, like when I was a kid, it was like something. It sounds stupid, but it was like something kind of magic that I possessed.
Right.
Yeah, that nobody had it. It was like a magic tool. I don't know. Every time I played it to somebody, there is a track. Chem Soeo, I think it's called, that is like this psychedelic, I don't know, kind of guitar synth above, and behind there is completely wrong rhythm, but it works perfectly. And it's like counter whatever. And for me, this track was always like, I have a magic piece that weirds everybody out, but is beautiful. And I don't know, it has. I was really somehow really happy that maybe 10 years ago or so, I think around 10 years ago, with the whole. The people who were reissuing records and things like this, like Mr. Bongo and Finders Keepers, that suddenly the work of Pedro Santos got so much popularity. It got a bit famous again. Probably, maybe it was never before, but I was happy because through this I could also before that there was a blog that was maybe done in 92 or like in the beginning of the dark ages of the internet that was about this percussionist, and I was always on this this blog and looking for he did all these records, and I was like collecting the records he did.
Oh, that's so cool.
But it was like impossible to find, it was like, but then through this whole movement of Finders Keepers and all these things, some of the records I could find, and not just like rip it from YouTube or something, So. But I have a really deep passion for this percussionist because, I don't know, he... and I have to say that this is maybe the thing that connects him to Julian, is that he uses percussions also like a melodic instrument, like it's not beats.
Yeah, for sure.
I do musical pieces. And I think that's why I also have a connection to Julian, because I grew up really with this percussionist that has this vision.
Oh, nice. I don't know him actually. I will listen to it. Immediately.
Eu vejo a mercê, ser corrimão, dentro da selva, já pode olhar, dentro da selva, já pode estar, dentro da selva, já pode andar, dentro da selva, já pode amar. Eu vejo em você.
One question actually I had for both of you before we finish, we'll start with you, Julian, is what does buying music look like for you generally? What kind of formats do you like? Where do you buy your music? Yeah, tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, I have a problem with buying music because I love to buy vinyl, but I'm never home. So it doesn't make any sense of me buying vinyl because I just I can store. I have a storage. It's like more having a storage for vinyl than because I just come home really late usually, in the evening after the shows, and then the next day, if I'm in Bern, I go to the studio immediately, but I'm really often traveling, so I cannot listen to the vinyl. But actually it's my favorite format. So then sometimes I buy stuff on Bandcamp, like digitally, but then it just fills my hard drive, and so I stream a lot. But then when I really like a record, I just buy it on Bandcamp to support the artist, and not for having the file actually. So I just felt more like, when you go to the restaurant and you give a tip to the waiter, I would love to have a system where you can just transfer money to artists without buying anything, just for showing you that you like his work or their work. So I do that via Bandcamp, just buy the record, but maybe not even, or just downloading it, but then I keep on streaming it. Yes. And also sometimes I used via Spotify you can also now finally give money to the artists that you like.
Yes.
So I did that also from time to time, just because I listened so often to the record and I felt like the income that they have is not enough from my listening when I stream it. So I wanted to give them money. But yeah, It's like really difficult. I would love to be home more and listen to vinyl, but it's not working with how I live. Yeah.
And yet, keep buying it. I get that. I do the exact same thing. I buy the CD, and then because my small toddler son just rips up any CDs you get, I just stow them under the bed. So, got a bunch of shrink wrap CDs just sat there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Feldermelder, what about you?
Yeah, I was really into vinyls like back in the day, like in the 90s, beginning 2000s. Then with files coming around, I'm a computer kid, I have to say. I try to actually really download everything, and I really try to buy everything that I really like.
Nice.
Like I buy them on mostly I buy things on Bandcamp. If I'm really obsessed with the record, I buy vinyl. And really also I don't have much time to listen to the vinyls, but it's more for support. And generally also the Bandcamp, I think like I was really like a Napster kid, kind of. At some point when I was young, I had no money, and also there were no record shops I could buy potentially the things. So it was, for me, this was like a heaven sent to be able to listen to everything, even if you don't want then to own it, But I don't know, I say something randomly, but to listen everything what the Beatles did. To be able to do that as a musician, to go in deep into something without having to spend 2,000 to own every record is beautiful. I'm more concerned because I'm also running a label now, and that how the transfer of money to the artists happens. So I'm really a fan of Bandcamp, and if a artist has even a own shop that is to him personal, then I even buy it there. Just because I think it's important that people have money and time to do great music that I want to listen to.
And on that note, please go buy Bon Route, because it's absolutely fabulous, as I say. And that's on your label, the label you co-founded, right, Feldermelder?
Yes, it's on Us Records.
Yes, awesome. And thank you, both of you. This has been great. I've really enjoyed talking about your collaborative record, but also you picked 4 absolute corkers. So, yeah, thank you so much for your time.
And thanks to you.
These.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
And to everyone listening, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.